Alright, so before we get started with the run, there's one thing I need to do first per the community rule set for the Glitchless category for Final Fantasy Legend 2, and that is to scramble my starting RNG seed, just because RNG manipulation is I believe fairly easy to do in this game if you have a known starting point, which you can achieve through a hard reset. So since I just turned on my game, effectively doing a hard reset, we need to scramble the RNG, make it difficult, if not impossible, to actually manipulate it during the run. There's other categories that allow manipulation, but this one doesn't. Hey, Dynafire, welcome in. Alright, so I'm going to load a save file I have prepared for this purpose, which is at the end of the game, just in a section of Ashura's world where there's kind of effectively conveyor belts in with the quicksand, so that just kind of means low effort farming encounters. So I'm just going to take a couple of fights here. Once I've taken a couple fights and just performed some actions to advance the battle RNG seed, then I'm just going to soft reset, because soft resetting does not reset the RNG seed, it's preserved, and that'll mean that I have a effectively random starting point. Hey, Rotorstorm, welcome in. Like 4 fights this time. Most other people I've watched run this category do this literally at the very end of the game, but some documentation I read by a runner named Catclaw recommended doing it here just for because it's lower effort, and I kind of like that idea. So I don't even have to walk around, the game's just doing that for me. Alright, so we're good there. Did a soft reset, and now it is time to begin. Right, so Final Fantasy Legend 2, known in Japan as Saga 2 Hiho Densetsu, or Legendary Treasure, I really kind of like to view as being a story about a grand treasure hunt, because in the backstory there, we found out that there's a treasure called the Magi, which is 77 pieces of a statue of a goddess named Isis, the goddess who made our world. And when our character, who I made a human female, was a child, her dad gave her one of the pieces of Magi, and then went off to look for more of them, basically. And then after growing up, our heroine, decides to go look for her father, and her teacher, Mr. S, it's recommending going looking for the Magi as a route to finding her father. Now we get to build the rest of our party. We're going to do another female human, a baby dragon, and a robot. There's a couple different route options for this category. I'm doing really probably the most beginner-friendly route, which is the 2 humans, 1 monster, and 1 robot. I'm going to immediately kick it off by de-equipping the 2 humans and giving their rapiers to the robot, because robots in this game are very special in that their stats are completely driven by what pieces of equipment they have on, and you have a lot of freedom as far as what types of equipment you can put onto robots. And our robot is going to be pretty much our boss destroyer for most of the run, because we're able to abuse the fact that we can manipulate its stats just purely based on equipment in order to stack a bunch of agility boosting gear, and also the fact that there's certain weapons in the game where the damage formula is primarily driven by agility instead of strength. And having a lot of agility has other benefits too. We're already noticing one of the issues with not having a lot of agility, which is failing to run away from encounters. So running away, I mean, there's pretty much no non-required fights that we're really ever going to take in this run. So the goal is generally just to run away as quickly as possible, and for quite a few fights in the game, like all of the ones in this cave, there's a chance to fail to run, which is weighted based on the party's agility, which is very, very bad at this point. And because of that, if I get fights with only a single monster type, I'll just kill it rather than risk failing to run. Like I had a couple of failed runs already. Alright, so at the end of this tutorial cave, we get a mini boss called Baby Worm, who's pretty easily disposed of. We got its meat drop. There's an alternative route where you actually feed that meat to your baby dragon, which because monsters effectively level up when you feed them meat dropped by other monsters, and that gives you more agility. But there's a trade-off in that you may have to give that whatever time back you saved and more later based on luck. All right, so we pass through the tutorial cave, and then Mr. S is having us fend for ourselves now. So we go to the Temple of Isis, Isis being the goddess, and meet a sage named Key there who tells us that there's some magi in an area to the south called the Relics of the Ancient Gods. And it's worth pointing out now too that now that Mr. S has taken off, because a new thing that this game introduces that the first Final Fantasy Legend didn't have is guest characters as in a fifth party member. And a really, really interesting and important mechanic in this game is that when you do not have a guest character, the fifth, or I should say, just if there's any slot in your party that's empty, either because there's not a guest character or you have a character that's dead, then that slot has some kind of phantom stats associated with it, and one of those phantom stats is 100 agility. So that means that here and any other point in the game where I just have 4 characters instead of 5, I am guaranteed able to run from any fight that's not just flat out unrunnable. It means there's only specific overworld walks and dungeons throughout the game where failing to run is actually a possibility. I mean, even late in the game, even when it is possible, I'm going to have so much agility that being able to run the odds are going to be in my favor. So it's really just kind of an early game risk as far as run failures. You're definitely noticing now, too, that this game's random encounter rate is extremely high. My understanding is that basically there's a step route, effectively, over the course of probably 256 steps or so, and the number of encounters you get over that set of steps is fairly consistent, so how many encounters I get is not terribly relevant to how fast my run is going to be. So we found some evil people stealing some magi. Fortunately, they didn't get all of them, though. There's 3 we're able to pick up here. Then Throw some more agility boosting gear onto our robot, and then you can actually equip some of the Magi too. So we're going to equip the Mana Magi on our monster for much, much later on when having some extra magic powers will be useful, and then give the speed to the robot, because again, speed, very, very important stat. Both for doing damage and for running away when there's a risk of failure. Fortunately, the goons who were very, very quickly about to learn are henchmen for a fiend named Ashura, who was in the first Final Fantasy Legend as the penultimate boss, have escaped with some of the Magi, so we're going to go let Key know about that. What makes this game difficult, I would say, is just that it doesn't have a traditional level up system. If you don't really figure out how to get stronger, which is different for each of the races you can play as, then you can get stonewalled by some of the bosses. Like there's a boss called Venus coming up at about 50-ish minutes or so that I've heard a lot of horror stories about people getting stuck on. Alright, so he offered to join us and go head to Ashura's base to try to get back the Magi that his henchmen stole. Yeah, we're over here. So since Key is now our 5th character, that means we're once again at risk of failing to run away, because our party's agility is still pretty bad. One kind of micro-optimization I did, too, is that I took off my 2 human female characters' armor at the very start, too, and that's actually to try to make it very easy for them to die. Because, like I said, it's empty character slots that have that phantom 100 agility, and if a character dies, then they get 100 agility, so I kind of want, if I fail to run, I want the monsters to kill one of my squishy humans with no equipment, so that then I'm guaranteed the run on the second turn. Yeah, each race has its own unique system for leveling up, and we'll be getting into that at least for over the course of the run for the races that do that. The one race that I'm not using at all is Mutant, which it's a little like humans in that they can randomly gain stats after battles, but they can also randomly learn special skills too. It's kind of there's a higher risk, higher reward route that uses a mutant instead of a human for one of the slots too. You have kind of a little worse start as far as equipment to give to your robot, but then you also later on you get a chance to potentially get some good skills from the mutant. If this run were a PB attempt, I'd be pretty seriously considering a reset by this point because of just how many fleas I'm failing. It's one of the kind of heaviest random elements in the run for this category, especially for the early game at least, is flea luck. And also these randomly moving zombies here, if you touch one, you get into a fight. Kind of like the guards in the Sword King's Castle in Final Fantasy Legend 1, but in this you can at least run. Hey Shintak, hey Tigurian. One's playing so we reach a mini-boss at the end of Ashura's base. Now we get to see the first payoff of stacking a bunch of agility boosting gear on the robot, which is that we get to one-shot the Rhino mini-boss. But with a bonsai, which is, I believe, the Rhino activating the self-destruct on this in this base, we find out that we were too late, that we're recovering some of the Magi here that Ashura took, but the bulk of them are in Ashura's actual real base, which is in a different world than we are now. Hey, Patrick. There are quite a few glitches in this game. Like you can do arbitrary code execution. There's ways to get out of bounds and walk through walls. Like there's other categories that use the glitches and kind of to varying extents. Like a true any percent run is at least on the Japanese version, which I'm a little more familiar with glitching on. Is like 12 minutes or something, because I would have credits warped in the dungeon I just finished, actually. And then there's like a 35-40 minute run that does some out-of-bounds shenanigans to skip to the end of the game about halfway through. So there's a pretty specific walking route I take here to avoid getting pushed around by the quicksand. And then Key took off when I left our starting world too. So once again, 4 characters. So because I have an empty slot in my party, I'm guaranteed running from all encounters because of its phantom stats assigned to the 5th slot. All right, so now we're heading into Ashura's tower, Ashura's real base. Stuff not working as intended. I don't think there's quite as much of that in this game as in FF1. Like the Saga games or Final Fantasy Legend had a pretty different development team from at least for programming from the NES Final Fantasies. Like, I would say for this game, a lot of the glitches more fall into the category of just doing very specific things that the programmers didn't really think about a player doing, causing wacky stuff to happen more than like you haven't just stats not working or really major components to the battle system being broken in some major way. Hey. To take down a woodman here that's guarding a stranger in the cell. Oh yeah, we see our humans gaining some HP because humans' stats can randomly go up after fights. So we rescue a man in a mask that was being held prisoner by Ashura. He looks quite a bit like our dad, but he's not actually. That's actually something I didn't even know until a few days ago when somebody commented in one of my other YouTube videos that the masked man is, even though his sprite looks very, very similar to your father, he's somebody else that'll be a little more relevant later on. So Mask, fortunately, even though he's a 5th character, has decent stats this point in the game, so he doesn't really cause anywhere near as many run failures as Key or Mr. S. As we go to, we're picking up just various pieces of equipment here and there. Most of what I'm I picked up a saber, which is another agility-based weapon that we're throwing on the robot. But I'm also just grabbing some stuff that I'm just going to sell for Bunny later. Alright, and then we reach the top and we get to face Ashura, our first kind of real boss. Get to hear the boss music for the first time, too. Ashura is actually... Oops, I want to use the saber. Ashura is actually pretty easy with our killer robot here. Hopefully, I mean, yeah, Ashura has a flame breath attack that we don't want to see, especially on the first turn, because that'll kill pretty much my whole party except for Mask, who then has to solo the fight. But okay, yeah, had a 2-turn kill because of Ashura not hurting the robot and then getting some pretty good damage rolls. Yeah, that was a pretty good Ashura's tower, even if this early game has been pretty slow otherwise. But yeah, we find out when we talk to Ashura, though, that The reason why Key has magical healing powers is because she was born with magi inside her body, and Ashura kind of shrunk some of his minions to small size, and they're now inside Key's body, trying to find the magi and kill her, or as he put it, 2 birds in 1 stone. I actually like Saga 3 quite a bit, but it's fairly different from the first 2, and I can get why fans of these games might not like the 3rd one. We're behind a lot, primarily because of flea luck in the first 2 dungeons, where we had Mr. S and Key. Pretty much the sole reason I lost so much time there. Would have been definitely been a reset if this were a PB attempt. All right, so then one of Key's attendants told us that there's another world that has giants in it that kind of know the secret to shrinking people. We should go find them to find a way to get inside Key's body. But while we're looking for the giants, we actually kind of run into our dad for the first time in many years, and he gives us another magi and kind of just tells us that he's still looking for the magi's, the treasure of legend, basically, and well, he's not ready to go home yet until it's found, but if we keep looking for it too, we'll see him again. There's a couple of quest triggers we need to hit in this town called the Giants Village. As far as trying to find the shrinking technology to let us get inside Key's body to save her from Ashura's posthumous threat. We go talk to the bartender there. We specifically have to talk to him from behind the bar, and then he tells us to talk to this guy named Johnny, who's a former giant, and then he tells us a way to get into the true Giants Village, which is east of here. Like, this place is former giants that use the shrinking technology to become normal human-sized. Secret door. We do have to hit those story triggers to actually be able to get up here. We have these kind of actual giant-sized houses, which I think are kind of neat, especially given the very limited capabilities of the Game Boy hardware. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, creating a world where people don't need gods anymore is a very, very, very common goal in JRPGs. Now we're also seeing just kind of how this game enforces its progression and linearity. Like, so when it said opened, when I went into this house, that was just the game checking that I've found all of the magi that I'm supposed to have up until this point. Specifically the 2 in that other house. So we just grabbing 2 items here that I'm going to be selling, and then we get the micron, which is the shrinking technology to let us go inside Key's body. Yeah, I mean, the Saga franchise, I would say, hasn't really changed that much from its origins, in that you're kind of expected to do trial and error experimentation to figure out how to get strong, rather than grind levels. A few exceptions, like Legend 3 has a leveling system, but like this game and like even more recent ones, even like Saga Scarlet Grace and Emerald Beyond, it's kind of all race-specific leveling. Alright, so now that we have the micron, we're heading back to the first world where our hometown is to try to go save Key and get the badge eye, but save Key in the process. I don't really fully understand how us taking the badge eye from Key's body doesn't kill her, given that that's what Ashura's goal is. Well, somehow we're making it work. So before we actually head back to the Temple of Isis to go inside Key's body, we're heading into this the second town in the first world, which is conveniently called Second Town. And then gonna sell off just all of the loose gear we have right now, except for the micron, and then buy a SMG, a gun weapon that we're immediately throwing on the robot, and that's we need that for one specific fight, but it's really, really important to have it for that fight. Also, thanks for the raid, Tigurian and Blind Empire. Because the SMG is a weapon that can hit an entire group of enemies, so it's going to be extremely effective against the next mini-boss encounter. Alright, so we use the micron to become small and get inside Key's mostly anatomically correct body. Like, if you don't even really need to look at zoomed out maps of this place to kind of recognize what it's trying to depict here. But we basically just need to go to Key's hands, feet, heart, stomach, and then brain in the end in order to find the pieces of magi that yes. Hey Skull, thanks for luck. Yeah, this is a very, very long dungeon, especially by this game standards, especially if you're actually fighting the encounters. But fortunately, since we don't have a fifth character here, we get the completely free fleas. Yeah, the proportions are a little interesting, that kind of the hub for Key's body is about the same size as for hands and stuff. But I think this, I mean, this dungeon is a little bit of a drag, I think, to play through, especially casually. But for what they're going for and this being on the original Game Boy, I think it's pretty neat. Key having an unfortunate case of intravenous rhinoceroses and terrorists and stuff, by the way, too. Yeah, and squids and horses. We got the two out of her hands. Now we're heading into the heart, which is mostly anatomically correct. I mean, it has 4 chambers. Yeah, I mean, rhinoviruses, I think, are the scientific name for one of the viruses that causes the common cold. So yeah, maybe. I mean, you can also refer to viruses and bacteria as terrorists. Maybe we're getting metaphorical here. Very nice, by the way, too, that whenever you get one of the magi, you're teleported back to the hub. You don't have to walk all the way back. Grip or grippe, I think, is a French word for cold or something. Told me that once. Glad too that the hands and feet are nice and symmetrical as far as where I need to go to get the magi. It's always the second finger from the left in the hands, and then the rightmost toe. Hey, I am Popo. Come in. Oh, flu. Okay. As far as I know, it doesn't particularly matter what order you get these into. The goal is just to try to. I mean, there's ways you could do it that would involve extra walking, like if you did the stomach here, then went back for the hands, and then came down and did the feet. But as long as you're just not setting yourself up to have to backtrack, I don't think it really matters what order. Now we're going through Key's intestines up to her stomach to get the Magi here. I think this dungeon too is one of the places where we really start seeing the kind of the graphical advances in this game compared to the first Final Fantasy Legend, because there aren't really a whole lot of animated tile sets in Final Fantasy Legend 1. Like there's some cloud backgrounds that move, but like these kind of shimmering walls in here, I don't think there's really anything like that in the first game. Those type of monsters, yeah, I felt like they were definitely thinking there as far as monsters that make logical sense to be inside someone's body. Well, I guess the implication too is that Ashura's shrunk minions are in here too, which is like what the terrorists and stuff are. But those monsters that are like cells and viruses you can actually encounter in the real world later on too, which means Alright, so we've gotten all 6 we've gotten the first 6 Magi, which then lets us go into Key's brain to get the 7th and final one. Because again, most of the gating in this game for progression is just tied to how many Magi you have. Alright, so now we have a mini-boss encounter before we get the last Magi. We have 5 Magicites. Oops, I used the wrong weapon. Now we get to see why we want to use why we got the SMG, which is that it attacks an entire group and that'll just one-shot all of the Magicites. I'm not actually sure how to pronounce that, but I believe Magicites are a type of white blood cell in the immune system. Okay, and then I also just did a minor skip there too, where once you collect the last Magi, the game kicks you out of Key's body, and if you hold the down button while the game's loading the map, you'll walk away from Key before she can talk to you, because there's intended to be some dialogue there with Key thanking you for saving her. We can skip that. Alright, so now that that's out of the way, now we can move on to go continue our treasure hunt looking for the legendary treasure, the Magi. It's 77 of them, and we don't have anywhere close to that many yet. Kind of navigating through this mystical, I've heard it called the Beanstalk Tower, to cross worlds. Yes, that is allowed. That dialogue skip is allowed in Glitchless. I mean, there's a specific list of things that are banned in Glitchless, and that's not one of them. I mean, all it's doing is making the run a little bit faster by skipping some dialogue. Now, I actually thought about doing some FFL3 practice, but I'm not really ready for it and got a later start, so we'll have to save that for next time. Alright, so when we head on to the next world, we meet this kind of imposing-looking tall fellow named Apollo, who's one of the new gods that we've been warned about a few times is kind of people trying to use the Magi to become new gods, to replace the old gods like Isis. But Apollo says that it's all good, though. He has enough power and doesn't need any more. And to kind of demonstrate that, he gives us one of the Magi, gives us some clues on where to find the rest that are in his world. Hey, Jofus, welcome in. Yeah, it's too bad. Well, it's highlighted on my Twitch and on my YouTube, but yeah, I can definitely sympathize with missing something live. So there's a little bit of flexibility as far as what order we can do the dungeons in Apollo's world. I believe we have to do well, I believe we have to do the Cave of Light after the volcano because we need the True Eye Magi to actually be able to see in the Cave of Light. I don't think that's actually a hard requirement from what people have told me, but there's no reason not to bonk around in the dark. So first place we're going is this undersea volcano, and I like this shimmering effect that they use to show that you're underwater too, which is something I definitely felt lacking in Legend 1 when you go underwater at one point. So again, looting some more chests for items to sell for cash. This is a fairly short dungeon if we're just heading straight to the end, too, unlike a later volcano we'll be going to. Get some Magi, and then the True Eye Magi, which, like I mentioned a bit ago, is more or less a requirement to get into the next place we're going, called the Cave of Light. We'll up far enough. So for most of this world, we're free of having a fifth character, so totally free fleas. But in this dungeon, with its disco checkerboard floor, there actually are some monsters in here that can ambush you, because the mechanics for you getting ambushed in this game are different from failing to run away. It's basically specific monsters that have the surprise ability and then can randomly ambush you. That's an ability you can learn yourself too, but and you might potentially do that if you do the mutant route that I talked about earlier. But since we're just rolling with humans, we're never going to see the surprise ability, I believe. I don't think the monster forms we get have it. So I want to say it's the I think they're called gazers. It's an eyeball enemy. I think those are the main enemy that can ambush you. Hopefully that won't happen. Big Eye. That. Let me head down here and grab a laser sword, although I love the Japanese name for it, which is lightsaber. Immediately throw that on the robot, because that's a really, really nice agility boost. And again, kind of all throughout the run, we're going to be capitalizing very heavily on the way that robots kind of quote-unquote level up, which is just that their stats go up by fixed amounts based on what types of equipment you have. And you have, I think, 6 slots on robots. It's either 6 or 7 to, I think, yeah, because they have a slot that's an immunity to poison and paralysis. Then I think all the others are for you to put whatever in. And we're primarily stacking agility boosting stuff, because agility is more or less the most important stat in the game for speedrunning. That does have side benefits of giving the robot more health too. Tank hits in battle. And then we also have it in the fourth slot in your party, because I believe enemy AI tends to, in this game, it's programmed to prioritize the front slots compared to the back. Alright, so we've gotten all the Magi out of the Cave of Light, and we head to the Mountain Cave, which is the final dungeon in Apollo's world. This is a bit of a trolley dungeon in that there's actually two entrances. The first, the one we have to go to get the Magi, we can't see easily. We have to walk back here to find it. I love the enemy sprite work in this game, by the way, too. Like that sword sprite we'll be seeing probably a few more times. It always looks to me like it has a really bad joke it wants to tell us. And here I'm going to make a slight detour to grab an item called the rocket that I'm going to sell for some cash. If I'd have gotten... Because the mini-boss at the end of Key's body, the phagocytes... It's one of several mini-boss encounters where the number of enemies is randomized, and that's really the only one where I want as many as possible, because if I hadn't messed up and not used the SMG right away, it would have been over very quickly without the phagocytes generally getting an attack off. And the more of them that I killed there, the more money I get. And if I get like, I think under 6 is the general consensus, is where you might be in danger of not being able to afford the next shopping trip without getting that rocket. So I mentioned that we're mostly free of 5th party members in Apollo's world, but we're about to pick up who's unfortunately probably the least useful 5th party member in the entire game, who's a girl named Lynn, who's I guess looking for Magi here as well. Like, I should have paid more attention to the text, but she's not really able to do much because there's a robot called Dunidas that's blocking the exit. Eliminate, eliminate, eliminate! During the brief time that Lynn is with us, we actually have a lot of risk of failing fleas. Fortunately, it's not very long. So we take Lynn home to the town that's in front of the cave we just came out of, and then we have we see something kind of odd though, which is that our dad is basically kind of playing house with Lynn and her mother. Stepping trip here, these headbutts, which are a type of martial arts skill. Very, very good for boosting agility. Stacking some more of those on the robot. Not too sure what's going on with our dad kind of seemingly cheating on our mother with a different family, but we just peace out at this point now that we have the Magi, and we'll deal with that later. Yes. Yeah, if you pay attention to the ending, because I always thought that when you see Lynn's family in the ending, that it's your dad paying them a visit. But if you actually look closely, like when the guy in the hat steps to the left, you actually see that he's masked instead of your dad. So yeah, it does make sense within the story that the reason why Lynn's real dad disappeared was because he was captured by Ashura. Alright, so now we're heading to a place called the Guardian's World, We don't really know who the Guardians are or anything yet, but we're able to infiltrate their base by playing the heroic tune on the jukebox in the bar, and then we get arrested as spies for the new gods quickly. But then we basically find out that our dad is the captain of the Guardians. I think we probably get some more lore if we talk to NPCs here that the Guardians are the good guys. Basically, they're trying to find the Magi for good purposes. We take a little cat nap here, and then unfortunately, I guess we probably forgot to lock the door that we opened with the jukebox password, and then the new gods monsters destroy the base. Yep. Kind of like how I have the Sid multiverse theory, which is that all Sids in all Final Fantasy games were created when, during the cutscene in Final Fantasy V, where Sid and Mid are repairing the airship so quickly that there's a ton of copies of their sprite flying around. The Unified Dad theory definitely makes sense in a similar way. We do have some mini-bosses effectively guarding the stairs here, and each one of them gives us a Magi. I love the soundtrack to this game, which was mostly done by Kenji Ito with a little bit of music from Nobuo Uematsu reused from the first Final Fantasy Legend, but this kind of crisis theme here is a little grating. Fortunately, we're almost done. And we got ambushed by Minibus here. All of these fights are trivial though, because they're all single opponents, and we've got our killer robot with using the laser sword to pretty great effect. All right, have a good night, Rotorstorm. So that commando working for the new gods told us that they captured Lynn and took her to this strange world called the Monsters World, which is literally just the Beanstalk Tower and then a clearing here. There's no towns or dungeons or anything here. It's pretty rare to actually fail a flea here, just because our dad's stats are not terrible like Lynn's or Key's. Then we rescue Lynn from this ninja, who's referred to as a monster in the text, kind of oddly, although our dad explodes in the process. And we get to hear Heartful Tears, the sad theme from Final Fantasy Legend 1. But sadly, even though he blew himself up, another unexpected attack. Yeah. Well, this one I'll kind of buy more than the last one. We probably were pretty legit surprised that the ninja survived the dad explosion. Yeah, dad doesn't do anything half-heartedly. That's for sure. All right. So now we find out the truth behind kind of what's going on with our dad and Lynn's family. That. Lynn's dad was also one of the Guardians and didn't come back from a mission one day, and then kind of the truth behind that is that he's the masked guy we rescued from Ashura. He was being held prisoner by Ashura, and then our dad just kind of offered to take care of Lynn's family in the meantime. Story element. It hasn't aged terribly well, but, I mean, this game is from 1991. Alright, so now we head forward 3 worlds. And now we're heading into Venus's world, which I like to compare to Las Vegas because it's filled with beautiful people. There's a 24-hour wedding chapel. I'm sure everything's pretty expensive here too. Oh, glad to hear you. Oh, nice. Yeah, I do love me Octopath too. Bring about other people playing it. So we go talk to Venus, who lives in a castle where a lot of the walls have pictures of her on it, which very, very vainglorious. And she, yeah, what happens in Venus stays in Venus. Venus denies that there's any Magi in here, but something that's not used at all in the speedrun, by the way, though, is the Prism Magi, which our dad gave us at the very start of the game. That's basically like the Dragon Radar from the Dragon Ball franchise, where if you use the Prism, it tells you how many Magi are in the current world you're in. You can kind of figure out very, very quickly via that, and probably talking to NPCs too, that Venus is lying. Also get a little more lore here too, which is that Venus only allows beautiful people to live in her city, and people that are not beautiful are kicked out and forced to live in the town I just went into. That's literally called Dirty Village, and we had to go in and talk to a resident of Dirty Village called Leon in order to progress the story. Then we head into the sewers for Venus's city to look for Magi. Yep, Dirty Village. Yeah, Venus's world, another world with no guest characters, so all the fleas are free. So I mentioned quite a bit earlier in the run that if I'd have eaten the meat from the baby worm mini-boss at the end of the very first dungeon, there'd kind of be a price to pay for it. And that would be right here, where this mini-boss hermit that I have to kill here in order to get a key to progress in the dungeon. It's rare for it to survive. And guarding. If I'd have done the silver route, because if you eat the baby worm meat, your baby D evolves into a silver, which is it's a more advanced type of monster that has more agility. In order to stay on track to do the monster evolutions I need to for the latter parts of the run, I'd have to redo that, potentially refight that hermit crab until I got its meat drop, and that can potentially cost all of the time you saved from fewer failed fleas in the early game and more if it takes... Well, yeah, it's something I haven't done, by the way, yet, too, is saving the game, too. I mean, this is a Game Boy game meant to be made to be played anywhere for short bursts, so you're able to freely save at any time, and we will be doing that later on for manipulating some battle results to go our way. So, yeah, if I was doing the meat route, I'd have had to save and then just keep reloading and redoing that fight until I got the meat drop. I don't know what the odds of it are really any of the meat drops in this game, but I know it doesn't feel like it's in my favor. Like, at most, it's maybe 1 out of 4. Hey, Bumpkin, thank you. Hope you did as well. Flex Beetle there too. Looks much a walk through the wall here because it's not actually a wall. So in order to progress the story at this point, we need to talk to this character named Flora, who is basically in love with Leon, the guy we talked to in Dirty Village, but Venus is ordering her to marry that imp nearby named Nils instead, and for whatever reason, that causes a what my buddy Jair calls the I believe the magical volcano of engagement to suddenly appear. That's where we're going next to get some more Magi. Oh, I hope. Yeah, the retranslation hack is the way to play Breath of Fire 2, in my opinion. Breath of Fire 2 is my go-to for what I consider the worst translated RPG on the Super Nintendo. Just a night and day difference with the retranslation hack as far as how much better the cutscenes are. So we got ambushed by that werewolf pack there. It's certain monster types that can potentially ambush you, and not going to be forever that's going to be a threat. We're eventually going to gain the ability to ignore that, but for the time being, yeah, werewolves can potentially ambush us. Hey, Fun Size, thanks for luck. Hope you're doing good as well. Yeah, I believe Breath of Fire 1 was translated, Capcom outsourced translating that to Squaresoft, aka Ted Woolsey, but then decided to do Breath of Fire 2 in-house to unfortunate results. And then kind of a neat little... The game's trying to kind of show here that Leon is following you in this volcano, and so that's why you're forced to stop moving sometimes, and then you see Leon appear briefly at the edge of the view. I think that's a pretty neat way to try to visually represent being followed in an old school game like this. Sprite on the left I like to call a literal fish out of water. So this volcano is actually quite a bit longer than the volcano in Apollo's world. And whenever we walk on the lava, we do take some damage from that, which is something that's going to matter. It doesn't really matter now because one, we're not going to we're never going to fail fleas, and even if we do get ambushed, the odds of our whole party dying is extremely low. Because yeah, another thing too is that oh yeah, we'll see. You might probably see it here. If a character gets killed, other monsters that were queued up to attack that character just do nothing. So the odds of them killing everybody is extremely low, and even if that were to happen, at kind of as last resort, there's a built-in retry mechanic via one of the old gods named Odin. We'll be meeting later, but for a big chunk of the game, if we die, our whole party dies, we'll go visit. We'll be sent to Odin's palace, which represents the afterlife, and Odin will kind of offer to give us the strength to fight again if we offer to fight him someday. It's a shame that this isn't like Final Fantasy 1, though, where tiles that do damage also don't trigger random encounters. Coming up on the Magi here, so a little micro-optimization I'm going to do here, which is just grabbing them in order left to right, because when I get the one in the middle, Leon comes up and steals it from us, and then that pushes us east, and that just means we get a free step without risk of encounters. Final Fantasy Legend 2 Volcanoes. But it is great. So we kind of know instinctively at this point that Leon is about to try to do something pretty stupid as far as trying to use the Magi that he just stole from us to go interrupt the forced wedding between Flora and Nils. Get into the 24-hour wedding chapel. No objections are allowed. It's, yeah, quite the sham wedding here. So, Leon shows up and tries to fight Venus, and it doesn't go too well, trying to fight a new god. So, Flora offers to marry Nils to spare Leon. Venus says no to that, so Flora gives herself a scar to make herself not beautiful in Venus's eyes anymore and ineligible to live here. But after just sitting there and watching this for a while, our party has had enough of Venus's shenanigans. So, because of all the damage I took from the lava tiles in the volcano, I just pop a X cure on the robot at that point, so it has full health and could potentially survive one of Venus's attacks. I've heard numerous horror stories from people's casual playthroughs of this game, with this boss fight with Venus being a stone wall. Yeah, well, hey, Leon. I mean, that's what Squall's fake name in Kingdom Hearts is. So yeah, maybe Leon and Flora have matching scars, a la Squall and Cypher now. All right, so then defeating Venus gives us all of the remaining magi in the world that she claimed didn't exist. And we are ready to move on. But yeah, because Venus is a pretty significant difficulty spike as far as bosses in this game. Between the amount of health she has and having a fairly nasty AoE attack, and her regular attack being kind of nasty too. But yeah, just our killer robot with all of the agility boosting gear, and then the laser sword, which uses an agility-based weapon. As long as Venus doesn't kill the robot, I win in like 4 turns typically. Alright, so now we're heading into a pretty strange world called Race World, where the theme here is dragon racing. You actually get to choose which dragon to rent to join the race, because we talked to people who find out that the race is where the track is where the magi in this world are. Ambushed here. I'm guessing it's I actually don't know which of these monsters has the surprise ability. If I had to guess, I'd guess the ogre. So my third character, the baby dragon, or baby D, has been pretty much complete dead weight for this entire run for an hour so far. That's about to change, because there's other monster types I could have taken that would have been more useful early, but we're doing the baby D and keeping it that way, I believe, because of baby D is actually technically a more advanced monster type. But the version you can start the game with just kind of has special lower or early game stats. Because it's kind of, as far as the monster evolution system, it's kind of viewed as a higher level monster. We're able to abuse that for evolution purposes. So that was kind of close. Actually, it might have killed the robot there. All right, so then now there's actually 3 mini bosses on the racetrack. The first one I was actually able to just run from. You can make that tortoise encounter just not be there by taking one of the slower dragons, but it's kind of been found through routing science that it's faster to take the second fastest dragon and then just run away from the tortoise. Another ambush. Yeah, the game's really driving home that coming up on the end of actually being able to get ambushed. What is that, like 3 in a row at this point? As far as I know, getting ambushed is just like a flat rate, too. Very important save here. Now we get to what's pretty much the worst bit of randomness in the whole run, which is the Watcher meat farm. Because, like I said, we're going to abuse the monster evolution system to give our third character a very, very big power boost, and in order to do that, we need to get the meat drop from the Watcher, the last mini-boss on the racetrack. Like with the Lamia before that, the number of Watchers in the encounter is random, 1 through 4, and anytime we have 3 or 4, that's just an instant reset at that point, because it's actually... Okay, good. Because I had to say, I think they killed the dragon there, which that's an instant reset too. Because monsters need to be alive in order to eat meat at the end of a fight. All right, we got it. That was actually not too horrible. I see. As I lost a bit. Oh yeah, I lost a bit. I mean, the Watcher farm wasn't horrible. This world was horrible with all those ambushes, though. Alright, and we win the race by default because everybody else died. Yes, Final Fantasy Legend is the Saga series, the first 3 Saga games. Then yeah, Final Fantasy Adventure was the first Mana game. Alright, so now we get the Watcher just in time for when we start really needing its abilities, because the biggest thing that the biggest thing that we've been lacking thus far with our battle parties, kind of a good means of doing AoE damage to groups of monsters. Like we were able to deal with that for the Phagocyte fight in Key's body by buying an SMG, but that, I mean, we've sold that since then because it's pretty outdated now, or not. We'll be selling it shortly. But the Watcher that we just evolved has a skill called Beam, because monsters stats and abilities are completely static based on what monster form they are, and then again evolved by eating meat dropped by other monsters. And the Watcher has a skill called Beam, which is a nice, just high damage attack that hits an entire group. And then way back earlier in the game, I gave C, my monster, the mana Magi, that's to boost its beam damage, I believe. So then before we take off here, we're going to sell everything. And buy one of the best weapons in the game for our purposes, the Cat Claw. It's going to be the robot's final weapon. It's just a really nice agility-based weapon. So we're heading into this now. What's called Edo World, a very Japanese-themed world. This world is what people remember about this game from playing it casually. Is the story in this world, because the story in this world is about drug smuggling, because it's inspired by an event called the Chinese Opium Wars. But in the English version of Saga 2, Final Fantasy Legend 2, they censored the opium by calling it bananas instead. It's pretty much just literally copying and pasting opium into bananas. I've heard theories that bananas is a code word for opium, but I like to more think that it's actual bananas that are being regulated and smuggled here rather than drugs. So Edo World has a lot of a lot of quest triggers we need to hit in a linear order. So we we needed to go fight the Hatamotos in the town there to first find out that there's trouble afoot in Edo World. Then we had to go talk to Hana, who's a detective investigating the smugglers. Then we go talk to a shopkeeper that knows when the next shipment of bananas is due, in order to make the banana boat with the sinister music here become accessible. Be looting some really nice equipment here too. One more thing about the Watcher I just evolved into. The Watcher has a passive skill that prevents surprise attacks. So once I've evolved the Baby D into the Watcher, I can no longer get ambushed for the rest of the run. Nice upgrade. Get a laser gun, a nice AoE weapon that boosts agility. We grab a tank out of a chest, which is a weapon that also can block physical attacks. The Hecate boots, I think we're eventually going to be. I think that's where we're going to eventually be equipping that on Dad to boost his magic stat. Quick menu to do here. Throw the tank onto A. Here, B is going to be actually using a Magi called the Aegis Magi. But needs to have a weapon equipped in order to be able to use the Magi. So I just throw a weak rapier onto her so that she can use the Aegis, which is one of the Magi we got from Venus. That's that can protect against magic of certain types. So yeah, we find many barrels filled with contraband bananas on the banana boat here, so we're going to scurry off to alert the local authorities. I was doing the mutant route that I've mentioned a few times, got phenomenally lucky with skill learning. I might have the teleport skill at this point, and I think getting off at the banana boat is the kind of the single biggest time save from having teleport at this kind of at the earliest opportunity to get it. So we head to the court here to turn in the smugglers. Oh yeah, and then Hana also has a turtle named Kame. Kame just meaning turtle in Japanese, working with her. But the authorities say that there were no bananas found on the boat, so kind of learn at this point that the authorities are in on the smuggling. Hey, Chronomark, welcome in. We're being advised by to give up because we're getting in over our heads with finding out too much about how deep the banana smuggling conspiracy goes. And Hana joins us. This is about the point, too, where having fifth characters doesn't really matter that much anymore as far as risks of failing pleas. I mean, it was kind of earlier, too, when our dad joined us. Like, I did have a failed flea in this run, but that's pretty rare. Yeah, just say no to potassium in large quantities. So, we're able to actually go downstairs in the Echegoya's shop now. I think Echegoya just means gangster or just some kind of criminal individual in Japanese too. We get a pretty silly cutscene here too, where we find out that the Shogun, the leader of Edo World, is in on the conspiracy, and then he and Echegoya, the head of the smugglers, are complimenting each other on how evil they are. But then our robot plays our theme music too loudly and alerts them to our presence, and we have a forest fight here, which is pretty trivial. Got 9 Hatabotos, but thanks to our watcher, we're able to just dispose of all of them. Apparently our robot... Oh, we got an abacus! Ooh! I've never actually seen that before, but that definitely makes sense, that it's the abacus they're using to count their ill-gotten wealth from the banana smuggling. It's very rare for the robot to be that slow, by the way, too. It's got lots of agility, so it usually goes first. Alright, so then Taro, another... I think it's just like a heroic samurai of some kind. Oops, actually, joins up with us, and now we head to the Shogun's castle to bring the real head of the smugglers to justice. I honestly don't even... I have no idea what the abacus actually does. If it's like Dragon Quest, where it's a weapon, or if it's just like something you can sell for money. So then we have a mini boss encounter at the gate to the castle here, and this is somewhat of a source of RNG. Because the number of monsters, the number of types of monsters, and the number of that type of monster is all random here, and you can get... There's up to 3, and there can actually be 1, and if there's only 1 monster type, then it's over very, very quickly, because you just mow them all down with your death beams from the Watcher. And if there's 3, then it can last up to like 3 turns. A lot of cases. Okay, so a mustache twirling unscrupulous merchant is an Echigoya. I love the visual design for this castle, by the way, too, kind of keeping the Japanese theme going within the technological limitations of the Game Boy. I forget which floor it actually is, but once we're about halfway through this castle, we actually start the enemy sets change slightly, and we actually start running the risk of having to refight the mini-boss encounter in front of the castle, and that's annoying if it happens because you can't run away, and it's also not really easy to tell if that's the what we call the Gate Guardians fight too, because again the constitution of that fight is randomized. So and it's also not, you're also not okay, yeah, this is it actually. I was kind of blanking on if the ninja left is part of it, but yeah, it is. Okay, so I think it's the start of this floor is where we can start having to fight these guys again. So this is pretty bad luck here that we're having to not only redo this fight, but redo it with 3 enemy sets. And I guess what I was trying to say before they interrupted me too is that because you are technically capable of failing runs here because of having Taro with you, failing to run from this fight maybe something you just kind of misattribute to Taro instead of to it being the unrunnable fight. Or maybe it was. Maybe it's the 4th floor. This is the 5th floor, but it's halfway through the castle where it starts becoming a threat. Well, I'm glad they dropped some X cures because they took a pretty big chunk of my Butcher's health. Alright, so then we track down the Shogun here, who's has a lot of HP, but is an extreme wimp otherwise. A 1-turn fight, sometimes a 2 if I get bad rolls. But now we see kind of the true leader of the banana smugglers, which is this. I'm guessing Magnate is another Japanese title rather than a formal name. I love this sprite work, by the way, too. Demonic-looking samurai mask. Whatever kind of mask that is. So, Magnate is one of numerous bosses that it just has an attack that it's that right there, Tornado, where if it does it early in the fight, then I lose. You know what, we're just going to reload, because that was like turn 2. Got a 0-step encounter there. And yes, you can fight the dolphin statues, which are called Shachihikos. There's an actual thing on the roofs of certain Japanese castles. I'm guessing just if you want to fight powerful monsters for chances at mutant skills or stuff like that. Yeah, so the main thing we don't want to see Magnate do is use Tornado, just because once I've used the Aegis with my human character B, that gives me some lasting immunity to lightning, so lightning won't hurt me, but Tornado still will. As long as I get a couple good turns with no Tornado, then this is generally in the bag. There we go. Alright, we get the last of the Magi in this world. Well, I think all of them. I don't think we actually found any Magi before that. Being hoarded by the smugglers. I do love too how the boss arena where you fight Magnate is reused, probably unintentionally, in a later game called Live Alive at the end of the ninja chapter there, where you're fighting the final boss of the ninja chapter on the roof of a Japanese castle with dolphin statues on the side. So then the next world we go to is called Nasty World, not to be confused with Dirty Village earlier. It's called Nasty World because there's a dungeon called Nasty Dungeon there, it's a pretty long dungeon that has a lot of good treasure in there, but there's only one Magi and it's literally right at the beginning, so we just grab the Magi and then peace out. Nice Magi called the Pegasus too, which gives us access to the teleport ability. And teleport between certain towns. Yeah, and there's a troll fairy in there too that if you get to the end, the fairy asks you if the dungeon was hard enough, and if you say no, you get teleported back a couple of floors. Alright, so now we go to Valhalla World. Since I have not actually died, and hope not to. I might have died to Magnate if I hadn't just reloaded my save, but if we'd have died at some point earlier, we would have been sent here to have Odin revive us in return for agreeing to do battle with him someday. Well, someday is today. I think it's a little unfortunate that there's no special dialogue when you meet Odin here if you've never actually died. You just do the fight, it saves a lot of time on dialogue and speedrun, but it's kind of maybe the Nintendo DS remake actually has some different dialogue here. Because yeah, This game was on the original Game Boy, and then there was a remake of it. There were remakes of all three first Saga games, also known as Final Fantasy Legend, but unfortunately all of them were Japanese only. The remake of Saga 1 was first on the Wonder Swan, and then later on Japanese mobile phones, and then on the remakes of Saga 2 and 3 were on the Nintendo DS, but none of them were ever released outside Japan. And I think it was a big missed opportunity to not do that when they re-released these games as the collection of Saga / Final Fantasy Legend, first on the Nintendo Switch, and then later on Steam as well. So, Odin is a pretty random fight, just because there's a couple direct things that can happen. So Odin has some flunkies. So his trusty steed Sleipnir, and then some crows. I know there's some mythological bases. There's some mythological connection between Odin and crows in Norse mythology that's escaping me right now, but yeah, it's all mythologically accurate. But take down the ads, then just kind of hope that Odin doesn't stab the robot with his Gungnir spear in the process. Stab the Watcher, but kills enough health. All right, that was actually pretty good. But unfortunately, we actually got a potentially unavoidable glitch called the Sleipnir Meat glitch. And I say unfortunate, not because it like invalidates the glitchless run or anything, but because it's a bad glitch. It deletes most of the money you're supposed to get from that fight if the Sleipnir drops meat. Oh, okay. Okay. So they're spies for Odin, basically. So that's going to cost me some time later, because I'm going to have to make some extra pit stops in a dungeon to grab some items I wouldn't otherwise get in order to replace that lost money. It's like 20,000 gold or something that I lost. It's pretty significant. Alright, so we've got almost all of the you know what? Actually, I think defeating Odin, gave us all of the Magi. So we're heading on to the. We're trying to head back to home or to the tower, I guess, to try to figure out what to do with them. But then Apollo's waiting there and reveals that he was just waiting for us to collect all the Magi so he could take them from us. And Apollo sicks his chicken minion on us, and then the chicken doesn't really work out too well because it's not immune to being petrified. So that instead he reveals that he's abducted all of the major NPCs from all the worlds we've been to, like Hana and Taro, Ki, Lynn, Flora, and Leon. So we give in to the hostage demands and give all of our Magi to Apollo. I guess we had 76, and we were looking for the last one that Apollo had. But yeah, we think that Apollo has all of the Magi now, but then our dad shows up and tells us that there's actually 78 Magi instead of 77, and the final Magi is conveniently located in this nearby dungeon called the Final Dungeon, even though it's not actually the final dungeon in the game. It does have the spooky screaming skulls on the wall, though. Yeah, it's a there's no randomness at all to to the monster evolution. Well, there's randomness in the meat drops, but what meat drop will evolve what type of monster into what new form? That's not random at all. That's completely deterministic. It's not. There's nothing really in the game proper to tell that to you, but like if you use F guides or FAQs, you can kind of plan out an evolution route for your monster if you play the game. It's kind of a running theme of the Saga series, even to this day, too, is just having some, having just some obtuse things about the battle system that you're meant to figure out on your own through trial and error. So this is the aforementioned dungeon where I have to go take a few extra detours to open some chests I wouldn't otherwise need. Like this one, this split one I'm getting right now that for the Arthur armor I would normally get, and a run that didn't get the Sleipnir meat glitch, but the Sun Sword I picked up earlier is part of the backup for getting Sleipnired. I get to floor 7, I'll need to go to get the tent. So tents do the same thing they do in quote-unquote real Final Fantasy, but in this game they are really, really, really expensive. 10,000 gold each. So yeah, I got the Sun Sword to sell, and then the tent to just bean one less tent that I buy when I'm stocking up for the end game. That's my recovery from getting Sleipnired, as we call it. And the Sleipnir with Odin drops meat and then kind of inadvertently deletes most of the money from the fight. Alright, so we know it's getting serious when the dungeon design starts getting more symmetrical. Alright, now we get to meet a returning friend, not only from Final Fantasy Legend 1, but also from Final Fantasy 1. Upgrade our headbutt to karate, which just gives better stats. We can actually change guest characters' equipment, so we give Dad the flare book so he has a better spell, and the Hecate boots to boost his magic stat. Now we get to say hi to Warmac Mark II. I love how Warmac has a 2 decal on the side because it's Final Fantasy Legend 2's version of Warmac. So that flare book I just gave Dad is for later, but for this fight, just like with Apollo's minion, Warmac is actually not immune to being petrified. Actually, there's actually several bosses in the game that don't have petrify resistance. Luck's pretty bad right now as far as actually hitting with it, but generally it should work before I would actually kill Warmac through damage output. But that can happen, and it's pretty sad when it does, because Warmac has 10,000 health, so it... Pretty slow final dungeon between missing with Stone Gaze numerous times and Having to do the detours for the Sleipnir recovery. Alright, so now we head to the final town, which unlike the final dungeon is actually the final town in the game. To sell the abacus for 2,500. With just everything else we have right now. Except the tent, I guess. And then we go on a purchasing spree for laser guns. Trade the robots' remaining headbutts to laser guns. And the final magi we got out of the dungeon is the heart, or the heart of the goddess in the Japanese version, which is it's a magi that can revive your entire party if you use it. So it's a very nice contingency for the next boss fight if things go badly. We need 3 tents, so I got the backup one in the dungeon and get 2 more, and then get elixirs, which are better than elixirs. They're elixirs. So yeah, the tent. I guess I didn't fully explain what the tent does. It heals your entire party's health and then skill usages, which include magic, and then the elixir is like that only for one character. So I got my party all set up for fighting Apollo, who's our next boss. Because Apollo has all of the magi, he's actually able to use some of them defensively. The first 5 turns of the fight, so there's only very, very specific attacks that can actually hurt him. But fortunately, all of our characters now have access to those, so we're able to really short circuit how this fight is intended to work. You're meant to just kind of tink against Apollo's defenses until he eventually transforms. We're able to, but we used the flare book we got before back in Odin's palace with Dad, and then a lot of laser guns and Watcher death rays to chip away at Apollo's 25,000 health during the first 5 turns of the fight, which is kind of more meant to be a glorified cutscene. After a lot of kind of empty threats, when Apollo doesn't actually do anything, he's going to show off what 77 Magi can do. Starts by changing the music to the boss theme. I think on this turn I could risk try to risk or gamble basically on Apollo going before the robot and using the cat claw instead, but just stick with the laser gun. Yes, now Apollo is it's a jerkbird. But once he transforms, he loses his immunity to standard weapons, so I switch to the cat claw here. And on the last turn, I just run away. I missed that he killed Dad, actually. Oops. Alright, well, that's an unfortunate time loss. Because, yeah, Dad needs to be alive. in order to finish the fight, and I missed that he died. So what I was supposed to do was actually to use the Heart Magi to revive Dad. Otherwise, if Dad's not alive at the end of the fight, then you just lose. We get to see this again, unfortunately, but yeah, we're just spraying Apollo with, again, just specific types of attacks that he can't block. And also that run away I was doing was intentional too, was just to consume the turn faster, but it wasn't the correct choice. What I should have done was Heart Magi. But now the music changes. Yeah, I guess I was off a little bit on the last turn too. It's after the music changes that I can switch to the Cat Claw. Now I can run away. It did enough damage to trigger his last attack. So now that Dad and one of my other characters are alive, then I actually win. Because Apollo didn't actually have all of the Magi, basically evolving into a true new god, failed. Yeah, exploded. But yeah, with Dad shielded us from Apollo's last attack. But now that we truly have all of the Magi, we reassembled them into the original goddess Isis, who patches up Dad right now and then joins us as our final character. And then, to be honest, I don't kind of fully understand this final story beat where but like why this is happening. But basically the defense system for this area called the Central Shrine we're in, which is the center of the multiverse, effectively is malfunctioning and threatening to destroy all of the worlds through earthquakes. Oh, okay. It's because of collecting all the Magi. Okay. We have to go. Hit Control-Alt-Delete on the defense system. And you're also noticing that I'm actually fighting stuff here now too. That's actually because a choice that the Final Fantasy Legend II developers made, which is that in the final dungeon, all fights, with one exception, unrunnable. I do have to fight everything. Fortunately, Isis is very, very strong and is capable of one-shotting most of the monsters here with her flare spell. But there are a couple formations where I have to do other stuff to clean up stragglers, and that's one of the kind of main skill-based things in the last dungeon is recognizing those groups. And then it's also very important to be tracking how many flare charges Isis has. Because again, I can't run from these fights, so if I get into one and Isis can't use flares, then it's going to be very, very slow. Because another unfortunate thing about this game is that you actually cannot use healing items in battle. Like, that's part of why, like, Venus and some other bosses are pretty hard casually, is that the means that you have to heal during battle are pretty limited to certain spells and skills, and you can't actually use any healing items in battle. And also you're on conveyor belts for a lot of this descent too, that are pushing you forward. So it's important to get into the menu as quickly as possible when you need to recover spell charges for Isis. There's two mini-bosses in the descent. First is Tianlong, and then the second is Fenrir. You know what, we're gonna reload that one. That was pretty bad luck. The number of Tianlongs is also unfortunately random. It's not really worth trying if there is any more than two. One is great, though. Be a one-turn kill. Yeah, even though I only had two last fight, that was they both did pretty nasty attacks. So then we get a guaranteed meat drop from Tianlong that we feed to our Watcher to evolve it into a Madam, short for Madam Butterfly. Which is going to be our final form. Hey, Drill Bite, welcome in. Kind of the big advantage that we get from the Madam is that it has an HP draining attack, which is really nice for the final boss. Because again, you're pretty limited. The final boss has 3 phases that all have quite a bit of health, and the last phase also does a lot of damage to you with very little you can do about it. So having a character that can both do damage and heal itself in the process is very important for the final boss arsenal, which is the aforementioned defense system for the central shrine. Very uncomfortable looking worm. I also moved the Madam to the first slot, just because I'd ideally like it to take as many hits as possible and on the final boss, because it can heal itself. It's really only the second phase where that matters, but turn can count. Hey Andy, yeah. I don't think real worms really have eyes or teeth like that. Where I'm getting the encounters is lining up kind of nicely with the mini bosses. Those for not really needing to do a lot of extra healing. So just like with Tianlong, the number of Fenrirs I get here is random. Fenrir is pretty dangerous, which kind of, again, like why if we get more than 2, it's not really worth trying. Keep reloading until I get a more advantage. Zorb skill. Fenrir meat is actually very nice, but we don't actually need it. So we're on the very last floor of the shrine now, and this is actually where we could potentially encounter the game's super boss called Haniwa, which I have yet to actually see in a speedrun, at least one of my speedruns. Be pretty hyped to go to Haniwa, not just because Haniwa, but also because it's actually the only fight you can run from. This final dungeon has actually been fairly lucky for encounter groups too. I haven't gotten Musashis yet, which are the worst possible fight for how long it takes to clean them up. Shoutouts to demo loads, by the way, too. How this game translates Demon Lord. Like to view demo load as being a relative of demo play from Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. All these HP gains we're getting just because humans randomly gain stats after certain fights. Alright, so we're now at the final boss, which is the defense system for the shrine, which we need to, I guess, reboot in order to stop it from shaking the worlds to pieces. And there's two of them, and unfortunately Isis takes on the second one solo. It leaves us to fend for ourselves on the arsenal to the left. So Arsenal is 3 phases. The first phase is based on these 4 cannons. Every 1001 damage will break one of the cannons. I think we got a little lucky here with breaking one of them before it attacked, because all this damage is unblockable. I think the encounter rate is pretty much the same for the whole game, Andy. Just it's some relatively consistent number every 256 steps. So yeah, music changing means we're in phase 2, which is the least dangerous phase, because it just does Small Smasher, which is a kind of a physical attack that can miss potentially. So I take that opportunity to heal my robot with a healing move that the Madam has. Got through phase 2 pretty fast, which is 5,000 HP. Then phase 3, which is also 5,000 HP, is quite a bit scarier, because it does Big Smasher, which does up to 639 damage to the whole party. So it's pretty likely that the robot is going to die pretty soon, but we hope to get a couple hits in before that happens. And now it's really up to the Madam to hopefully not miss, because the way I can lose at this point is either miss a bad miss or bad turn order. Good. We should have it. Oh, that's a miss there though. Pretty low damage roll though, so I'm out of kill range here, even though Arsenal outsped me. Please don't miss again. Might be the last hit. Wait. Thought he'd be dead he'd be dead right now because I got like 2 hits in with the robot. And got him. Yeah, the last phase of Arsenal is where the nail bite. Like my current personal best at this 142.24 had a very clutch Arsenal fight because the robot died before it got an attack off on the third phase, and it was pretty much just, the madam just had to solo it from there, and I just had to basically just sweat and hope that that one, I didn't miss at a bad point, and two, that Arsenal didn't end up getting 2 turns in a row and getting high damage rolls on both of them. Alright, so end timing after beating Arsenal, and then can put the controller down after leaving. Because yeah, then basically yeah, once we've saved the world, which is conveniently the name of the Arsenal Phase 3 theme, the soundtrack, Save the World, Isis kind of returns to statue form and stays behind to, well, given that she is the Magi, I guess just to keep the Magi out of the hands of people that might misuse them. Then we leave and go get reunited with our dad, and now that because again the whole premise of this game was a treasure hunt. I mean, again, the Japanese name is Saga to Hihoden Setsu, which is legendary treasure. Now that we've found the treasure, now we can finally go home. And I guess we have a little vision of Odin on our way home. We go check in with Hana and Taro here. Yeah, Akitoshi Kawazu, by the way, is the brains behind the Saga series. He got his start with Final Fantasy II, and then when Square kind of made Final Fantasy II a one and done as far as having a really different kind of advancement system, Kawazu went on to make the Saga series on the Game Boy and beyond. Going to say hi to all the friends who made. And this cutscene right here, I never really paid close enough attention to. This actually shows who the true identity of Mask is, and that it's Lynn's father. I find it kind of odd too that Uematsu is before Ito in the credits, given that Ito did like 80% of the soundtrack, but Uematsu was a bigger name at the time. Yeah, if you look really closely, you'll see that the guy who walked in to talk to Lynn and Lynn's mom is Mask instead of your dad, which is what I always assumed. So, yeah, the game ends I wouldn't really say like on a cliffhanger. It's more just kind of open-ended, I guess I should say. Where your dad is unable to kind of resist the lure of adventure for too long, and is going off on a new treasure hunt to look for the lost Ark. But this time, A is coming with him. Not just A, but also A's mom. There's a fun little Easter egg in Final Fantasy Legend 3, actually, where you can actually run into this family at one point, too, in a town very late in the game. It's something that went completely over my head when I played Final Fantasy Legend 3 as a kid, because that was the only Final Fantasy Legend game I played as a kid. That's the end. Final Fantasy Legend 3, glitchless any percent. Yeah, time not really too special, but I mean, was focusing more on commentary and explanation rather than on playing, which is yeah. I mean, I had a kind of a costly death on Apollo because of not really paying close enough attention to what turn I was on and what happened on the previous turn, but. Aside from that, most of the chunkier time losses were just bad RNG. Like the start had a lot of failed fleas. I had a lot of ambushes on the racetrack. So even though I got the watcher meet barely, like probably about the same speed as my PB, honestly, lost the time to that. Yeah, and I had to refight the Gate Guardians and Bananas World, along with having kind of a slow fight outside too. My Stone Gaze luck was pretty bad on Minion and Warmech. Yeah, I mean my PB before coming back to this run a few months ago was 150 something. So yeah, it's definitely shows some nice improvement.